philosophy. Why do so many of us feel like we're sprinting through life without ever actually living it? Why do our days fill with endless tasks, but our souls remain empty of meaning? And why, in a country with more wealth, technology, and opportunity than ever before, do so many Americans still feel exhausted, anxious, and overwhelmed? These are the haunting questions of our age, and they point us toward a truth we can no longer ignore. Faster is not always better. Hustle culture promised us happiness through busyness, but the result has been burnout. The counter-movement rising now across the United States is called slow living, and when combined with the ancient wisdom of Stoicism, it offers not just an escape from chaos, but a way to live with intentional simplicity, with depth, and with peace. Slow living is not laziness, and Stoicism is not detachment. Together they form a philosophy of life that is radical in its simplicity. Slow living says, live deliberately, savor each moment and do less but do it better. Stoicism says, focus on what you can control, let go of what you cannot, and cultivate inner calm. Both reject the modern obsession with speed, consumption, and comparison. Both remind us that a life worth living is measured not in how fast we go, but in how deeply we experience. And this is precisely why they resonate so powerfully in today's America, where people are beginning to push back against the noise of constant notifications, against the exhaustion of working without rest, and against the emptiness of consumerism without meaning. In cities like New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago, more people are asking themselves, what is all this rushing for? They see their calendars packed with meetings, their homes filled with items they barely use, their minds crowded with worries about things outside their control. And in that moment of realization, many are choosing something different. They are slowing down. They are practicing mindfulness. They are simplifying their lives, not out of weakness, but out of strength. And here is where Stoicism steps in, offering a framework for slow living that is not just about lifestyle, but about character. Stoicism teaches that external circumstances cannot guarantee peace. Only our inner choices can. Slow living teaches that less can be more, that space creates meaning, that rest can be productive. Together, they form a philosophy for mental wellness in a society that desperately needs it. Consider the pace of modern life. The average American checks their phone nearly 100 times a day. Commutes stretch long, work weeks extend beyond 40 hours, and leisure often becomes just another form of consumption. Binging shows, endless scrolling, compulsive online shopping. This pace creates stress not because humans are lazy, but because humans are not designed to live as machines. Slow living rejects the myth that worth is tied to speed. It calls us back to rhythm, to nature, to cycles of rest and renewal. The Stoics would agree. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, ruled an empire yet still wrote of the importance of reflection, of stillness, of aligning with nature. He reminded himself daily that rushing through life without wisdom is the greatest waste of all. This waste is visible everywhere today. People chase promotions, followers, and possessions, only to discover they still feel restless. They fill their homes with more, but their hearts feel less. They cram their schedules with commitments, but their souls long for silence. This is the emptiness of modern speed, and it is why the slow living movement is growing, particularly among young Americans who are tired of chasing illusions. They are beginning to see that life is not about accumulating more, but about experiencing enough. The Stoics knew this long ago. Seneca wrote that it is not that life is too short, but that we waste much of it. Slow living takes this to heart. It teaches us to stop wasting time on what does not matter, to simplify not just our homes but our minds, and to reclaim the depth that speed has stolen. There is also a direct link between pace and stress. Studies show that constant busyness increases anxiety, weakens focus, and even harms physical health. When every moment is crammed with activity, the nervous system never finds rest. But slow living, especially when practiced with Stoic discipline, offers healing. By choosing fewer commitments, by saying no to unnecessary consumption, by focusing on what truly matters, stress begins to fade. The Stoic reminder that only our judgments cause distress becomes clearer. It is not the endless notifications themselves that hurt us, but our belief that we must respond instantly. It is not the crowded schedule itself that destroys us, but our refusal to set boundaries. When we embrace slow living and Stoic acceptance together, we free ourselves from these traps. We discover that calm is not found in escape, but in discipline. Imagine a family in suburban America choosing to eat dinner together without devices, savoring conversation instead of rushing through meals. Imagine a worker in Silicon Valley setting boundaries around work emails, reclaiming evenings for reflection instead of endless productivity. Imagine a student in Chicago deleting social media apps, choosing to journal their thoughts rather than compare themselves endlessly. These are not small acts. They are revolutionary in a culture obsessed with speed. They are Stoic acts of discipline, combined with slow living's call to presence. And they lead to mental wellness because they shift focus from chaos to clarity, from noise to meaning. The critics of slow living often dismiss it as impractical. They argue that in a fast-paced economy, slowing down is a privilege. But Stoicism responds with a deeper truth. No one controls the pace of society, but everyone controls the pace of their mind. Even in the busiest life, moments of slowness can be cultivated. A deep breath before reacting, a pause before speaking, a choice to let go of an unnecessary worry. Slow living in the Stoic sense is not about moving to a cabin in the woods. It is about reclaiming presence wherever you are. You can live slowly in a crowded city if you choose to focus on what matters. You can live slowly in a busy career if you choose to set boundaries. You can live slowly even when the world around you races, because slowness is not about time, it is about intention. The American hunger for this intention is obvious in rising trends. Minimalist homes, mindfulness apps, wellness retreats, simple living podcasts. People want fewer distractions, more presence, and deeper meaning. Yet without philosophy, these trends risk becoming shallow fads. Stoicism provides the philosophical backbone. It reminds us that slow living is not just aesthetic, but ethical. It is not just about decluttering closets, but about decluttering the mind. It is not just about spending time in nature, but about aligning with nature's rhythm in thought and action. It turns slow living from lifestyle branding into true character building, and that is what makes it powerful. So we return to the question, why are we sprinting through life without living it? The answer is that we have confused speed with success, accumulation with happiness, noise with meaning. Slow living and Stoicism together offer a correction. They tell us to slow down, to simplify, to accept limits, to focus inward and to live with virtue. They remind us that life is not measured by how fast we run, but by how fully we live. And they promise that mental wellness is not found in the next notification, the next purchase, or the next achievement, but in the quiet strength of intentional simplicity. To understand why slow living and Stoicism feel so urgent today, we need to look at the pressure cooker of modern life. Every advertisement, every productivity coach, every social platform screams the same message. Faster is better, more is better, success is measured by output. The myth is that the faster you move, the further you'll get. But what happens in reality is that people arrive at burnout, not happiness. The truth is that the American way of speed has created generations of people who mistake motion for meaning. Slow living challenges this illusion by asking us to pause, to notice, to consider whether the destination is worth the pace. Stoicism reinforces it by reminding us that only what aligns with virtue is truly worth pursuing. The rest is distraction. This is why combining the two is so powerful. Slow living gives us the external practices, simplifying schedules, reducing clutter, embracing slower rhythms. Stoicism gives us the internal philosophy, discipline, clarity, and acceptance. Without slow living, Stoicism can remain abstract, locked in books and quotes. Without Stoicism, slow living can become superficial, reduced to aesthetic minimalism without depth. Together, they become a way of life that touches both the surface and the soul. Think about the growing popularity of minimalism in America. People are downsizing homes, decluttering closets, and moving toward experiences over possessions. On the surface, this looks like slow living. But why does it matter? Stoicism gives the answer. Because possessions are never truly ours. They are external, beyond our control, vulnerable to theft, loss, or decay. To build our identity on them is to build on sand. When Americans simplify their homes, they are not just making space in closets. They are practicing a stoic detachment, even if they don't name it that way. They are saying, my worth is not in what I own, but in who I am. That is Stoic, slow living at its core. The same applies to time. Americans treat time like money, something to spend, save, or waste. Every minute is scheduled, every second accounted for, until leisure becomes another item on a checklist. This obsession creates stress because time cannot be controlled the way money can. It flows regardless of our effort. Slow living reframes time not as a commodity, but as a rhythm. It says, live in the present moment, savor it, do not rush through it. Stoicism reinforces this by reminding us that the present is all we truly own. Marcus Aurelius wrote, confine yourself to the present. For him and for us, peace is not in controlling the future, but in living the now. Digital detox movements, mindfulness apps, and meditation trends in the US are modern echoes of this ancient wisdom. They are society's attempt to reclaim presence in a world addicted to future anxieties. Yet even as these movements grow, resistance remains. Hustle culture still glorifies speed, and critics accuse slow living of being unrealistic in a capitalist society. But Stoicism cuts through the noise with honesty. We cannot control society's pace, but we can control our response. Epictetus would say it plainly, if the world rushes, let it rush. You do not need to be swept along. The discipline of slow living is not about changing the world, it is about changing how you walk through it. You can walk slowly in a crowd running fast. You can breathe deeply while others gasp for air. That is not weakness, it is strength. Another important aspect of slow living is intentionality. To live slowly is not simply to do less, but to choose what matters more. It is the difference between drifting and steering. Stoicism aligns perfectly here, because Stoicism is about choosing virtue over impulse, wisdom over distraction. Imagine a worker in Washington, D.C., bombarded with demands and opportunities. Hustle culture says, say yes to everything, climb faster, fill your calendar. Slow living says pause, ask what truly matters, and choose less. Stoicism asks, does this choice align with virtue? If not, it is not worth your peace. Together, these philosophies form a compass in the chaos. One of the greatest benefits of slow living with Stoic grounding is its impact on mental health. Anxiety thrives on speed and comparison. When life is a race, you are always behind someone. When life is consumption, you never have enough. But when life slows, comparison loses its grip. You no longer need to run at someone else's pace because you have chosen your own. You no longer need to keep up with others' possessions because you no longer measure worth in things. Slow living removes the fuel of anxiety, and Stoicism provides the tools to face what remains. The result is not just less stress, but a more resilient peace. Consider the epidemic of loneliness in America. Despite constant digital connection, many people feel more isolated than ever. Part of this is because speed and busyness crowd out relationships. When every hour is consumed by work, commuting, and screens, little remains for human presence. Slow living corrects this by creating space. It says, prioritize time with people, with family, with community. Sit at the table without rushing. Walk together without distraction. The Stoics valued community deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote of humanity as a body where each person is a limb. To live slowly and stoically is to rejoin that body, to replace isolation with presence. Loneliness shrinks when life is shared deliberately. There is also a spiritual dimension to slow living and Stoicism. Both recognize that humans are not infinite. Hustle culture denies this truth, pushing us to act as though we have unlimited energy, unlimited time, unlimited control. But Stoicism faces mortality head-on. Memento mori, remember you must die, is not a call to despair but to focus. If life is finite, why waste it rushing past what matters? If death is inevitable, why fill life with things that bring no meaning? Slow living takes this same awareness and applies it to daily rhythms. If time is short, then slowing down is not indulgence, it is wisdom. It is the recognition that every moment counts, and that rushing past them is the greatest loss of all. Even the simple act of walking illustrates this. In American cities, walking is often rushed, a means to an end. But in slow living, walking becomes presence, a chance to notice, to breathe, to reflect. The Stoics used walking as a form of meditation, aligning mind with step, step with thought. They knew that philosophy is not just in books, but in how we move through life. Today, a slow walk without a phone, without distraction, can be a radical act of Stoicism. It is reclaiming life from the grip of noise. So what does this mean for the average American seeking mental wellness? It means the path forward is not about abandoning society or escaping to remote places. It is about choosing simplicity in daily life. It is about embracing less, not because you cannot do more, but because more is not always better. It is about reclaiming time, not through perfect schedules, but through presence. And it is about aligning ambition, not with speed or possessions, but with virtue. This is what Stoicism and slow living teach together. The cultural shift is already visible. Coffee shops that once celebrated hustle now advertise slow mornings. Online communities share stories of downsizing, of reclaiming time, of choosing presence. Mental health professionals recommend mindfulness, journaling, and reflection, practices straight from Stoic tradition. The pieces are falling into place. What remains is for more people to see the connection, to recognize that slow living and Stoicism are not separate movements but complementary responses to the chaos of our time. The choice is not whether we will live with speed. The world will remain busy, society will remain noisy, and culture will remain fast. The choice is whether we will let that speed consume us or whether we will reclaim ourselves through slowness, through simplicity, through Stoic wisdom. The opportunity is here, and the need has never been greater. The movement towards slow living and the practice of Stoicism both remind us that life is not something to be consumed as quickly as possible, but something to be lived deliberately. The challenge we face in modern America is not a lack of opportunity, but a lack of direction. With endless options, endless distractions, and endless demands, we risk losing ourselves in the noise. The antidote is simplicity. The cure is intentionality. Slow living gives us the outer structure, while Stoicism gives us the inner discipline. Together, they lead us back to mental wellness, not as a luxury, but as a necessity for a meaningful life. It is worth pausing to see what we are running from when we live at high speed. Often, it is silence. Many Americans today admit they cannot sit quietly without immediately reaching for a phone. Silence feels uncomfortable because it forces us to face ourselves. Hustle culture and digital life offer an escape from that discomfort by drowning us in noise. But slow living says, sit in the silence. Stoicism says, face yourself with honesty. In silence, you rediscover your values. In stillness, you rebuild your strength. In slowness, you remember that life is not a race. These are not abstract ideas. They are practices we can all begin, right here, right now. Imagine waking up in the morning without rushing to check notifications. Instead, you take a moment to breathe, to stretch, to set an intention for the day. Imagine structuring your day with breaks for reflection rather than filling every minute. Imagine ending your evening not with endless scrolling, but with journaling, writing down what you controlled, what you accepted, and what you learned. Each of these practices comes directly from the union of slow living and Stoicism, and each one reduces stress, builds resilience, and restores peace. The beauty of this philosophy is that it does not require perfection. There will always be days of rushing, days of noise, days when distraction wins. But Stoicism reminds us that each day is a new chance to practice. Marcus Aurelius, even as emperor, admitted that he often fell short of his ideals, but he resolved to try again the next morning. Slow living does not mean life is never busy. It means we choose to slow down where we can, to resist the lie that faster is always better. Every choice to pause, to simplify, to reflect is a victory. Over time, these victories build a different life, one of depth instead of haste. In America today, where mental health crises are rising, where loneliness is epidemic, and where burnout is rampant, this approach is not optional, it is essential. Our culture has celebrated speed and productivity to the point of collapse. Slow living and Stoicism together point to a healthier way. They say, stop measuring life in tasks completed. Measure it in presence, in character, in peace. Stop rushing to collect more and start noticing what you already have. Stop letting external chaos dictate your inner calm. This is the revolution we need, not through noise and conflict, but through stillness and wisdom. And this revolution begins with small, intentional acts. Saying no to unnecessary commitments, turning off devices during meals, walking slowly without headphones, reflecting each night on what mattered. These acts do not look dramatic, but they change everything. They retrain the mind to value presence. They build the discipline to focus only on what we can control. They replace anxiety with acceptance and restlessness with resilience. This is how we heal, not by doing more, but by doing less with greater depth. The Stoics understood that life is short, but it is long enough if lived wisely. Seneca wrote that most people waste life in meaningless busyness, and that true living begins when we align with reason and virtue. Slow living carries this wisdom into daily rhythm, teaching us to cut away the unnecessary so that the essential can shine. Mental wellness follows naturally when we are no longer torn in 1,000 directions, but grounded in what matters. And what matters is rarely speed. What matters is presence, gratitude, and virtue. Think about the legacy we want to leave. At the end of life, no one will say, "I wish I had answered more emails," or "I wish I had scrolled longer." They will say, "I wish I had spent more time with loved ones. I wish I had lived more intentionally. I wish I had been present." Slow living and Stoicism give us the chance to live now in a way that prevents those regrets. They align our daily choices with our deepest values. They ensure that when the end comes, we can say we truly lived. So as we conclude, the message is clear. We do not need to keep running faster. We do not need to keep filling every space with noise. We do not need to keep sacrificing peace for productivity. We can choose another way. Slow living and Stoicism together offer that way. A way of intentional simplicity, of mental wellness, of calm strength in a busy world. It is not a fantasy, it is a practice. And it begins the moment we decide to slow down and live deliberately. If this message resonates with you, if you feel the weight of constant rushing and want to breathe more deeply, then you are not alone. Thousands across America are beginning to embrace this shift, and you can join them. Take one step today, whether it's putting down your phone, decluttering one drawer, saying no to one unnecessary meeting, or pausing to reflect before bed. That one act of simplicity is a seed. Over time, it will grow into a life of depth and calm. And we invite you to walk this path with us. At Think Fresh Daily, we bring you timeless wisdom for modern struggles, drawing from Stoicism and other ancient philosophies to address today's chaos. If you want more content like this, if you want to keep learning how to live simply, slowly, and intentionally, then subscribe to our channel. Like this video to let us know it helped you. Share it with friends or family who are caught in the rush and need to hear that it's okay to slow down. Together, we can create a community that chooses wisdom over noise, simplicity over chaos, presence over distraction. The world will keep running fast, but you don't have to. Slow down, live intentionally, and discover the calm that has always been waiting for you.